Hey everybody, it's Chris Jolly of NovaHoops.com. I'm here to talk boys Class 6 regional tournaments. I'm very much looking forward to said Class 6 regional tournaments next week. If it goes anything like the district tournaments did last week, we're going to be in for a great time this week. 3 Class 6 regional tournaments, 8 teams each for a total of 24 teams. Only 6 of those teams will qualify for the Class 6 state tournament. 2 teams from each regional, the champion and the runner-up. We're not looking to be the runner-up, though. We're looking to be the champ of our region because we're thinking about, you got teams like Hayfield that aren't just thinking about winning regionals, they're thinking about winning states. And if you finish first in your regional, you get a better seed at the state tournament. So that's something to keep in mind because, as usual, Northern Virginia is chock full of state champion contenders, especially on the Class 6 side. So let's get right into it. I don't have time to probably embed graphics in this video, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm running out of time. There was a long weekend this weekend, and still somehow as I make this video, it's already Monday night. Let's go right into it, though. Let's talk about 6D, which is the Northern Region Tournament, as it seems. That encompasses the Liberty and Concord districts. Now, the Liberty champion was Marshall in both the regular season and the tournament. The Concord champion was South Lakes in both the regular season and the district tournament. Those two, you have to consider the favorites. They won it all. South Lakes has yet to lose to Concord competition. Marshall only lost once to Washington Liberty in the regular season once. Those two teams are the favorites. Now let's look at the matchups. South Lakes opens with Langley, which is a dangerous team, especially when they're hitting three-pointers. Ryan Bradshaw and those guys. They finished, I believe, tied for third in the Liberty District, defeated Wakefield in the first round. No, I apologize. They finished sixth in the Liberty District, and they defeated Wakefield in the first round. That should give you an indication of how they can be good or they can be bad. When they defeated Wakefield, they were good. They scored a lot of points, and they can do so again. But they run very hot and cold. I've seen them score 7 points in a half as well. They match up with South Lakes, a team that just looks like a team of maybe destiny. It's amazing. They lost their entire senior starting lineup from last year's team, which was a great team that made it to the state tournament. And they could be even better than last year. I'm not even sure how they did it. Mike Desmond has to be considered one of the many candidates for Coach of the Year in this area. It starts with Jordan Scott, who is the Concord District Player of the Year and the Regional Player of the Year. It goes through him. He's a shooter and a scorer with a great 6'5" frame, very athletic. But it's time to give credit to the rest of the South Lakes cast. Aiden Billings, Sol Vita, Kennedy, those guys, Brian Kennedy. They're deeper than you would think, and they've been virtually unbeatable. So if Langley can get hot and beat him, I mean, it could happen, but South Lakes is a strong favorite in that game. We're looking at the matchup South Lakes would get in the second round, which would be either Washington, Liberty, and Westfield. Westfield has had a nice season. They finished third in the Concord. They've given a lot of teams some trouble. First-year coach from ex-Centerville coach, Kevin Harris, first-year coach, I should say first year at Westfield, very experienced coach with a state title at Centerville, obviously. They've got some nice players, Jordan Hale, Kashantis Anderson. They have a solid team over there. They're going to have to go to Washington Liberty, and we've well-documented Washington Liberty's season. They finished second in the Liberty District. They've beaten some good teams. They played a hard schedule. They're led, obviously, by their all-world senior guards in James McIntyre and Brian Weiser. The future is now for them. They've endured tragedy. We've talked about that many times in the preseason, losing Braylon Mead. It seems like historically, certainly since we've been a website, Washington Liberty has had an extra gear in the playoffs. So we'll see if they can reach that gear these playoffs. If they do get past that tough Westfield team, they would probably match up with South Lakes. Very familiar with one another. They've played this year. They played last year in regionals. So that would be a matchup we'd all love to see. We'll see if Washington Liberty can reach that extra gear that they have in prior seasons. Obviously, a very emotional season for them. So now, down at the bottom half of the bracket, you have Marshall, as we mentioned. They'll open up with Oakton, who is the number 4 seed out of the Concord. Oakton didn't win hardly any games this year early on, but then they started to pick up their pace late. They started to find their groove. A lot of young, good players. So we'll see if they're ready for prime time when they go to Marshall, who is probably easily the best defensive team in maybe Northern Virginia. They play great pack line, man-to-man defense. They hold opponents to about 40 points, which on the boys' side is unbelievable, really. And they can score. Matthew Leonard, Jose Fudd, all those guys there with McDermott down low, holding things down in the post. This is a very good team. Jason Penn on the perimeter as well. A good team. Is it a dominant team? I think they've proven they are a dominant team. It's going to be very tough for Oakton to beat them. And then you start thinking about second-round matchups in this district. Madison and McLean will match up. Now, Madison has had an up-and-down season. They weren't able to beat South Lakes, again falling to them in the Concord tournament last week. That was their third loss to them. But this time, they were a lot more competitive. They were up until the very end. South Lakes had to rally to beat Madison. Madison is a very good, well-coached team, and they're up against a very scrappy McLean team that a lot of people think overachieved this year. They got guys like Jacob Blue on that team that are just unbelievable with how scrappy they are, play hard defense, play hard the entire game. So if Madison isn't ready to play playoff basketball, they could be upset. But they are the strong favorites in that game to advance and get another look at Marshall. Now, interestingly enough, Marshall and Madison played in the first game of the season, and that was a fantastic game that Marshall actually won by, I believe, a single point. They had to come back in that game. So let's start thinking, assuming the seeding holds, which you would think it would with Madison, Marshall, Washington Liberty, and South Lakes with home games. You're looking at South Lakes, Washington Liberty, and Madison Marshall perhaps in that semifinal. Those semifinals, which would be just outstanding games. Marshall and South Lakes will have the home court in those. So you want a favorite? It's tough. Madison and Washington Liberty are certainly capable of making a run in the States, but I think you have to go to the favorite. I think you have to go to South Lakes. And it's unbelievable what they've done. As I've said, we didn't expect them to arrive this quick. We expected them to start being dangerous right about now. But the one thing about them is Aiden Billings. Washington Liberty has an actual kid who can, Elijah Hughes, who is going to play football at the University of Southern California, that can bang with him. But other than that, there aren't many public school teams that have a guy that can bang with Aiden Billings, and I think he's a big factor. So I like South Lakes. They've demonstrated they can handle Washington Liberty. I like South Lakes to win the region. Now, whether they do or not, we'll see. Marshall, Madison, Washington Liberty, we'll see. Should be fun, especially the semifinals. So let's talk about the next region, which is the Occoquan region. And if you think you're losing your mind and this region has already been going on, even last week when the district tournaments were still going on, you're not losing your mind. The regional tournament started last week, actually. All 16 teams combined between the Patriot and the National were in this regional tournament. As they lost in their respective district tournaments, they had to open up regional play. So if you look at the survivors there, you have 6 Patriot district teams that survived and only 2 national district teams, Hayfield and Edison, the 2 teams that were in the national district championship game. Now, Hayfield and Edison are going to be much tougher outs than the rest of the national district. But wow, I mean, it just shows you the Patriot District, how deep and strong it is year after year. No different here. All these teams are battle tested. But the one team, obviously, that all people are concerned with is Hayfield, the defending state champions. They look as good as ever. Beat Edison by 10 points I believe it was 10 points in the National District Championship last week. That was their 3rd win over a very good Edison team. They don't have any public school losses this year. So obviously they're favorites not only in the region, but perhaps to repeat as state champions. They start the draw with Fairfax. Now, Fairfax was leading the Patriot District for a while, and they kind of tailed off at the end of the year. If by tailing off you mean a couple of very close losses to Alexandria City and South County. So Fairfax is by far not an easy first round draw for Hayfield, but Hayfield took care of Fairfax last year. Margad Choi Jilsarin is back. We're going to be very sad. We mentioned our rankings this week when he is done, because he is just an unbelievable player. Expect him to take it to another gear, even against Hayfield. But I mean, Hayfield is what they are. They're not going to be the underdogs to anybody in the regional and perhaps the state tournament. They're playing at home. So Fairfax, obviously a very tough task. They're loaded. They're well documented. They're returnees like David King and Greg Jones and DJ Holloway, and then the newcomers like Donovan Bass Briscoe and John Awoke and so on. They're loaded. So they're the favorites. The interesting part about that is the next round. Wow, what a first round matchup. South County will go to Alexandria City for another Patriot District war in that other semifinal, and that's just going to be a fantastic game. South County really paid the price for not winning the district tournament. They made it to the championship game against West Potomac. However, they were defeated by West Potomac. So that was significant, as it, number one, put them on the other side of the bracket. On the same side of the bracket as Hayfield, which you don't want to be on the same side of the bracket, because if you're on the other side of the bracket and you win it, even if you lose to Hayfield in the regional championship, you qualify for states. So that's not where South County wants to be. They don't want to be playing a road game also against a dangerous Alexandria City team that ended up being the regular season champion in the Patriot District. But man, what a matchup. I mean, if you're anywhere near Alexandria, get out to South County, Alexandria City tomorrow. It's going to be just fantastic. Talk about a great matchup right at point guard there with Kai Robinson of Alexandria City going up against the South County guards there. Unbelievable. So if you can, get out and see that game. It'll be fantastic. Winner gets most likely Hayfield on the road. Not the best bracket for South County and Alexandria City, but Alexandria City especially has had a fantastic year. South County a little bit down this year for a while, but they're firing on all cylinders now. So, we said before the year they could give Hayfield some trouble. They could be a contender to win states, and none of that has changed. So we'll see what happens. Top half of that bracket. Little lighter on the bottom side of the bracket, but not by much. Edison is a very good team that has fallen mostly only to Hayfield 3 times. They lost one to Potomac, but they weren't at full strength there. They're a very well-balanced team that can hurt you inside and out. They've got athletic wings. They've got good shooters. They've got Nadir Chirchi inside, just who can bang the living bejesus out of people. So Edison, they get Lake Braddock at home. The Bruins, who finished 7th in the Patriot District, have not had a good year. However, Braddock got through their competition. As soon as they went out in the first round of the Patriot District, they mowed through the National District, concluding with a 1-point win against a solid Annandale team. So, wow, I mean, would it be shocking if Lake Braddock upset Edison in the first round? It would not be shocking. They're the significant underdogs. The Bruins have a young team there, but, a good draw, and I would not count out the Lake Braddock Bruins. At the bottom part of the bracket, it's just time to talk about West Potomac, who did it again in the district tournament. Man, they set themselves up with that win. They've won, I believe, 13 out of their last 15 games. It's been well documented. They lost Donovan Bass Briscoe to Hayfield, and they lost, a couple other seniors who were pretty good. They're a good young team that plays defense. Now, what's going to happen this year in regionals, you just don't know. They match up again with Woodson, who they beat by 1 point just last week in the district tournament. We pointed out that West Potomac, even though they won the Patriot District tournament, which alone is a remarkable achievement considering how deep that district is, West Potomac won those games by a total of 8 points, and they won by 1 point over Woodson. Now, Doug Craig, who also got his team through regionals after the first round loss and beat some national district teams, Justice and I believe Thomas Jefferson. They have wins over them since their loss to West Potomac. He's going to have Woodson again ready to play West Potomac in a tooth and nail type defensive game. So West Potomac there in a battle right away. But again, West Potomac set up with a home game in good shape at the bottom half of that bracket, not on Hayfield's side. West Potomac and Edison are the favorites there, but Brian Metris and Doug Craig, you're coaching against them in the first round of the regional tournament, and who knows? Who wins it? Like we said, Hayfield's the overwhelming favorite, but this is top to bottom, no question, the strongest regional field from top to bottom. So, again, don't rule out anything, and Hayfield's going to get tests from Fairfax and then the winner of South County, Alexandria City right away. So Hayfield, even though they are the strong favorites, they're going to get a test running the gauntlet of the Patriot District, some of the top teams there. So that'll be fun. Let's go on to 6B, which is an extremely interesting region. You have the Cardinal District and the Cedar Run District. The Cedar Run District, talk about top to bottom. Geez, maybe their region isn't the strongest top to bottom, but you could easily argue that the Cedar Run District this year was the strongest, or at least one of the strongest districts this year, top to bottom. They feature their number one team is Patriot, of course, who is the number 1 seed out of the Cedar Run. They've beaten Battlefield, who is the number 2 seed, right behind them. Both have 22-3 records, and both are obviously very good teams. Patriot is number 3 in our Nova 19 rankings, Battlefield number 4. So those two teams alone, they're on different sides of the bracket. But there's a very good chance we might see Patriot Battlefield round 5 in the regional final. But we'll see a lot of minefields here, a lot of sneaky good teams, especially on Battlefield side. So let's talk about Battlefield side. Gainesville opens up at Forest Park, who are the champions of the Cardinal District. Forest Park, again, kind of a team like South Lakes that, in our view, arrived a little bit early. When they were winning games in the early part of the year, we had people flat out specifically asking us, why is Forest Park good already? And then they went through kind of a lull. They played in a holiday tournament at Wakefield, didn't do so well, took a few losses there. But man, they're back with a vengeance. Finished 10-2 in the Cardinal District, and they have great young talent. That starts with Brandon Adozie, who is a sophomore post player that you wouldn't know he's a sophomore. One of the most dominant forces down low around in Northern Virginia. You could argue, even in the private school ranks, one of the better low post players around. They've got some great other talent, have some experience as well. So they're the top seed, though, but they go against a Gainesville team that is extremely dangerous. Gainesville, most of their losses just against Patriot and Battlefield, and they've played those teams close to within single digits. So Gainesville is going to be a very tough game for Forest Park, but Forest Park enjoying the home court advantage in that one. Gainesville has Grant Polk, who is a 6'5" shooter who can really just get the ball in the net and score in a hurry. Guys like Trevor Moody who can play defense, and a lot of young talent. So this is a game really between two teams. You could argue Gainesville arguably arrived a year early as well, or at least several months early. Two very good teams. That'll be a good first round matchup, really a toss-up in my view. And then comes the most fascinating first round matchup probably in all the regionals. You got Freedom Woodbridge, who is averaging about 78 points a game at Battlefield, who is giving up under 50 points a game on defense. So this goes to it. Does offense or defense win playoff games? Now, Battlefield has the advantage. They're at home. They're going to be in front of their friendly fans. So this isn't quite a, end all be all. This is what wins out in a playoff game kind of thing. But it's a fascinating matchup. Freedom Woodbridge, as we mentioned, scores a ton of points. They're led by the District Player of the Year, Tavares Riley, Shamar Cisco, E.J. Reed. They are loaded with guards that can score. Now, Battlefield's a little bit of a more well-rounded team. As we know, they've got guards that can score too. Maddox Tennant, and those guys, they can put the ball in the hoop as well. But they're extremely deep, they're extremely physical, and they play great defense. Now, which adage do you want to go by? Guards win tournament games or defense wins tournament games? Frankly, in our limited experience, we've only been a website for 6 years, I tend to go with defense in the playoffs. So, would it surprise us if Freedom Woodbridge beat Battlefield? It wouldn't shock us. But until further notice, we're going with defense to win out there. We'll see, though. It's going to be a great game, one of the most intriguing first-round games, certainly. Bottom half of the bracket, Patriot, the other team of destiny. Patriot and Hayfield. Patriot and Hayfield clashed in an early season matchup that was an instant classic. Hayfield won by a possession, but Patriot is looking like the favorite to get out of their region, and we could see Patriot Hayfield again. But again, a lot of minefields, and it starts with Colgan for Patriot. Colgan has been a very interesting team. They feature a Division I prospect in Nate Ament, who's a 6'7" guy who's just getting better and better. You got to see this guy. I mean, we'll get a chance to. Hopefully he doesn't, transfer to IMG or something like that. But he's come along nicely. He's a tall guy that can own you inside and outside, plays defense. And, of course, Colgan has a couple of other guys that can play. Skylar Smith and Ian Penix, another sophomore. Nate is only a sophomore there. Ian Penix is as well. Those guys can play. Now, they're going to Patriot, where Patriot gets better crowd support, than just about anybody. So if Colgan can upset Patriot there, it would be shocking as good as Colgan is. But we'll see. It'll be an interesting matchup. The thing with Patriot is they have so much depth, and when one guy's off, they got so much talent that picks up the slack. The thing that we've really monitored this year is the development of big man Isaiah Vick, and of course you got the athletic Jay Randall at forward too. Their front court is so athletic. Their back court with Desmond Hopkins and those guys is just so good. Caden Bates. It's basically a fusion of young talent and experience that is going to be tough for anyone to beat. So look for Patriot to advance there, although Colgan is no pushover by any means. The other game is Colonial Forge at Potomac. So we have to admit we don't know much about the Forge, but the fascination there is Potomac's new coach he of course came from Colonial Forge. But man, I mean, tough task for the Forge to go to Potomac and win that playoff game on the road there. Potomac has been an interesting team this year. They're definitely not as deep as some other Panthers teams have been in the past, but they're definitely good. I mean, their starters are good. And it starts with Jaden Harris, really. He scores. Kenneth DeGuzman, their guard, he scores. TJ Bethea is a great all-around player. And their top rotation is pretty much as good as previous Potomac editions have been. The question is, do they have the depth? I think they certainly have the talent to get by the Forge. Second round matchup at Patriot. It's always the matchup we want to see in regionals. We always want to see Patriot Potomac in regionals. I mean, it's historically just a great game. Last year, of course, just a close loss for Potomac as Kyle Honoré drove the length of the court. Rest in peace, Kyle. By the way, still kills me to this day. But he drove the length of the court and missed a tough shot at the end, and Patriot won just one of the better games you could possibly see in high school in front of a packed crowd. It was so memorable. So if we get Potomac Patriot this year again, I know the public at large will be very happy. Again, are we looking at Patriot Battlefield Part 5? I would say the likelihood is fairly good. But Battlefield played Forest Park earlier this year. If Battlefield gets past Freedom Woodbridge, they played Forest Park and were in a very close game with Forest Park this year. Gainesville has also played Battlefield tough, so it'll be tough. I think Patriot has a clearer path to states than Battlefield does. But we'll see what happens. We're not taking anybody other than Patriot, though, in this region until somebody proves us wrong. But Battlefield has already proven they can beat Patriot. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be a fun region. All these regions are going to be fun. Those are your 12 first-round matchups. Again, only 6 of these 24 teams will make states. I don't know. Who do you guys got? What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. But we appreciate your time and have fun. Get out to a game.